morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
Anyone who has done serious cowboy work for any length of time has seen how sometimes nothing goes right and Murphy's Law lurks around every tree, and other days things seem to work out no matter what the odds are against it. And those are the days you savor. Billy and I have had a few in the last few weeks. Lots of cows, big country, heavy timber, and after about 3 hours of riding, we counted over 100 pairs through the gate into the high country range, but I expect we'll pay for that in the next while. Now this week, we have the story of an amazing ride put on by a young cowboy, and the story was actually witnessed by the cowboy poet Buddy Gale.
The horses were now in a wild panic along with Nick on his blue-gray, bucking and squealing, poured out through the gate.
All over the West now, it seems the urban sprawl is reaching into places that have been long-time cattle ranching areas, and sometimes the new neighbors don't understand ranching values. And that's the theme of our Cowboy Poetry Spotlight and Baxter Black's Cowboy Commentary.
There's a line that runs north from Dallas all the way to Saskatoon. Rain is plentiful on the east side of the line. On the west side of the line, the ownership of water often pits agriculture against urban development.
The Rangeland News looks at everything from a wildfire that devastated a cattle operation to the price of food.
Monthly price declines 3 months out of the first 6 of 2016.
Really? Can't wait to hear that. And on the horse training file, I'll look at some examples of less than stellar horsemanship. And we have another fine classic song of the West, and Buddy Gale's Bronx story begins right after Randy Houston gets us going with a story of a guy like someone most of us have known.
Lucky got hung in his bareback rigging, and it was a terrible wreck. The rodeo queen fainted dead away when his tooth bounced off her chest. Yeah, Lucky was smacking fence posts like a cart in the bicycle spokes. When the x-rays were read, everything but his spirit was broke, and he said, "Just call me lucky, 'cause it could have been worse." Yeah, this here ain't much more than a scratch, and I could have really got hurt. I'm lying here in a hospital bed, but when I come to, I could have woke up dead. Ooh, just call me lucky. Lost his thumb in his dally, so he's roping hard and fast. He caught a Brangus cow, got jerked down, and she climbed up on his back. Punctured his lung and split his spleen before we could stop her. Oh, Lucky said, "What the heck, I got to ride in a helicopter." Just call me lucky, 'cause it could have been worse. Yeah, this here ain't much more than a scratch, and I could have really got hurt. I'm lying here in a hospital bed, but when I come to, I could have woke up dead. Ooh, just call me lucky. The ICU nurse that had never been kissed, with one eye patch and a body cast. Oh, Lucky was hard to resist. So now he was lucky in love, and his future couldn't get much brighter, till Mary Lou ran off with with an airplane crash survivor. Just call me lucky, 'cause it could have been worse. Yeah, I don't reckon I'm the kind of guy who really needs a nurse. Why, just last week at the rodeo dance, I met a lady that owns her own ambulance. Ooh, just call me lucky. Ooh, just call me lucky.
Well, I met Buddy Gale a long time ago, and from that first meeting I've always enjoyed his stories and poems based on what he observed when he was a working cowboy in Alberta.
There was a time when every town and settlement in Western Canada had men who were cowboy of some ability. When you watch a rodeo, you see action in a more or less controlled atmosphere. It is still rough. It's no wonder that cowboys rank as tough as anyone in the world. When you see the things they did alone and every day, anytime out on the range. This story is an attempt at an insight into the way it used to be. It is also a true story, only the names are different. It's a story about a great ride and the events leading up to it, and a glimpse into the life of cowboys 50 years ago. Numerous ranches ran their spayed heifers on a range called the Reserve. There was a cowboy who looked after the cattle that grazed this pasture. Also, there was a herd of bucking horses that ran these hills. The kid didn't know any of this when he was told, "Pick out a couple of horses. You'll be heading to the Reserve for a few days to help gather." So he picked out Tommy and Joker, a couple of get-going horses. He lined up his bedroll and left early in the dark. It was late October and the days were getting short. Most of the leaves were on the ground.
Well, this is one of those stories that really gets interesting as it plays out, and the next installment's coming up along with a song I just love about trailing cattle to the high country when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Just ahead of a song that you've told me really fits for this time of year, let's get back to a young cowboy heading out on what would be the ride of his life from Buddy Gale.
He lined up his bedroll and left early in the dark. It was late October and the days were getting short. Most of the leaves were on the ground. He met up with another cowboy at a ranch owned by two brothers. They had a lunch of coffee and sandwiches and cake, then stepped up and headed out. One cowboy on the chuck wagon and one other cowboy and the kid. The two brothers in charge were only riding one horse each, leading none. Even the cowboy driving the chuck wagon was leading two horses. What the kid didn't know was he was traveling with cowboys who did things the way it was done in the 18 and early 1900s. The kid and the other cowboy followed the chuck wagon, riding half asleep under the hot fall sun. He noticed the two brothers had ridden on ahead and disappeared. About 2 in the afternoon, they reached the top of a high ridge, went through a gate, and down into a long valley. There was cattle in the valley and up in the timbered hills. This is where the roundup would be. He looked at the sky to see if there were thunderclouds, for there was a rumble, a far-off rumble. The other cowboys said, "I think I hear horses coming." Within minutes, there were horses all over the narrow valley. They streamed out of a side draw and down the road.
Now the story gets pretty intense in the next couple of chapters, but before that, trailing cattle up to the high country range is something that ranching families really enjoy. The grass is lush, the calves are growing fast, it's hot down in the valley, but cool up in the alpine, and Jack Hanna of the Sons of the San Joaquin really captured that experience in a song called Sierra Nevada. He gave the song to Belinda Gale, and this was the result.
The old cows are bawling, they're raring to go. It's hot in the San Joaquin Valley, you know. They're heading up high when the meadows are green, up where the air is both fragrant and clean. Up near the timberline, spending my days, keeping an eye on the cattle that graze. Sierra Nevada's right now and always. Graze in your high country range, graze in your high country range. Oh-lordy, I'm a-heading up high, up where the tall mountain peaks touch the sky. Sierra Nevada's alright till I die. Graze in your high country range, graze in your high country range. Craig's cliffs and canyons are snow-packed and deep. Your grand sweeping slopes are both rugged and steep. Your cool meadows gleam a meandering stream. Up here's a hard-working cow-puncher stream. Up near the timberline, here's where I'll stay. I'm feeling guilty just drawing my pain. Feeling your breeze, see the trees as they sway. Graze in your high country range, graze in your high country range. Oh-lordy, I'm a-heading up high, up where the tall mountain peaks touch the sky. Sierra Nevada's alright till I die. Graze in your high country range, graze in your high country range. When autumn rolls in, the scenes are so rare. The Sierras are grandest when fall hits the air. There's frost on the ground, the grass has turned brown. We've gathered the cows and we're hazing them down. Up near the timberline, stars shine so bright. Cliffs are aglow in the moon's silver light. Sierra Nevada's, your world is so right. Graze in your high country range, graze in your high country range. Snow starts to fly, it's back down I go. It's cold in the San Joaquin Valley, you know. When spring colors fade and summer rolls in, it's back to my beckoning highlands again. Up near the timberline, a hawk sailing by, coyote goes slinking, a bald eagle's cry. Sierra Nevada's, there's a tear in my eye. Graze in your high country range, graze in your high country range, graze in your high country range, graze in your high country range. Oh Lordy, oh Lordy.
Well, it sounded like thunder in the distance as the young cowboys rode up the trail, but it was actually the sound of a big bunch of free-running horses. And Buddy Gale picks up the story now.
A half a mile further down the valley, there was a wide meadow with a set of old log corrals in the center. The lessons on how it used to be were about to begin. The cowboy who was the herd rider for the pasture was a rough string rider with a reputation of afraid of nothing. He had rodeoed when he was younger, but a chute wreck had hurt him bad. When he recovered, he settled for riding rough horses for the local ranchers and some quiet cowboying to make ends meet. What the kid didn't know until later was the herd of horses was the local bucking string. Other than horses that had aged a year and were now old enough to ride. This was basically a herd of rough and unbroke horses. Hey there, Nick. Which one of this bunch do you want to ride home this evening? Well, he said, there's some nice blue ones in there. And there was. There was 6 or 8 gray-blue roans, very blocky, strong-looking colts, 3 and 4 years old. Run some in and catch me one, he said. So they chased a dozen horses into the corral, along with 2 or 3 blue roans. The roper was a Canadian champion. He wasted no time dropping a loop over a blue-gray horse. They snubbed him to a hitching post and tied up a back foot. Nick carried his saddle in and threw his hand-woven saddle blanket on and then his saddle. The horse threw it off a couple of times, but one of the cowboys eared him down and they cinched him up. They had put Nick's hackamore on the colt, so he pulled his hat on a little tighter and stepped on.
Well, that's how they used to do it in the old days, and what happened next is still coming up. Baxter Black looks at another aspect of the urban-rural divide when ranches get turned into acreages, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan with a little peek at water. What holds the loaded 30,000-pound trailer to the heavy-duty truck? What holds the 38-foot RV trailer to the dually? What holds the 2-horse trailer with your daughter's favorite pony to the half-ton pickup? Well, the odds are it's a B&W trailer hitch, probably a turnover bowl, American-made, employee-owned, customer-tuned, and proud of their part in America's greatness. B&W, holding things together down the road. There's a line that runs north from Dallas all the way to Saskatoon. Rain is plentiful on the east side of the line. On the west side of the line, the ownership of water often pits agriculture against urban development. The big boy land developers hired them a worn-out hack to go and buy the water rights off farmers down the track. Just pay 'em anything they ask. Hell, any price on earth. Them farmers haven't got a clue of what it's really worth. Them's fighting words, the farmer said. This water ain't for sale. It's all that keeps this place alive. Without it, crops would fail. The lawyer sort of laughed it off. We'll get it anyway. The cities need it all to grow. You can't stand in their way. It's progress. You should know by now. You can't hold back the flood. There's lifetimes given to this land. The water's in their blood. Oh, man, that's ancient history. Besides, we'll make you rich. Just name your price, you'll have it. It's nothing but a ditch. You're hollow as your vacant eyes. You're empty as your word. You can't see past the dollar signs. These things that you've inferred are bigger than your lawyer's fee, your Judas 10%. You've no respect for anything. You covet just the rent. Go back to your rich puppeteers who've never broke a sweat, who ride in when the battle's done and use their bayonet to finish off the wounded brave and pick their pockets clean, and then sell their spoils to innocents to keep their cities green. Explain to them the difference between value and price. The value isn't what is paid, it's what is sacrificed that gives it worth. It's measured in the turns around a field, in families and community, and broken bonds and healed, and barns burnt down, and harvest lost, and kids gone off to war. Explain to them it's measured in grooves worn in your soul, or in depths of neighbors' breaking hearts when someone's lost a wife, and that you can't just set a price on someone's way of life. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by B&W Turnover Bowl.
The Stony Plain Cowboy Gathering is August 19th to 21st at Heritage Park, Stony Plain, with a great lineup of entertainers, including Eli Barzy, Jackson McKenzie, Ed Peekycoot, Doris Daly, Ryan Fritz.
It's raining in the saddle, the wind's in your face.
Celebrating cowboy traditions through music and poetry for 24 years. For reservations and information, call 780-963-6092 and see StonyPlainCowboyPoetry.com. Just ahead of the Rangeland News, Greg Hager was raised on a dairy farm in North Dakota, and that's the state my dad was born in. He records in Nashville, and when he's not on the road touring, he spends his time with his wife and 3 kids close to the family homestead just southwest of Valley City, North Dakota. And here's one from his Cowboy Way CD.
You know I love those cattle, and I sure love this land. But out here in your beauty, there's so much to comprehend. You clothe every blade of grass and flower that is found, and you know each time a sparrow hits the ground. You taught me how to pray in your words of red. Once again I'm here and asking for my daily bread. What would it hurt if I could get a little more? Lord, it's not for me, but for her that I am asking for. Know that I'm contented to work hard every day. And if she's wanting more than I provide, she just won't say. She's changed that old shanty from a wreck into a home, and far away from her I'll never roam. You taught me how to pray in your words of red. Once again I'm here and asking for my daily bread. What would it hurt if I could get a little more? Lord, it's not for me, but for her that I am asking for. Lord, it's not for me, but for her that I am asking for.
News of the Rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
Rangeland News, top of page 1. You know, North Americans are paying a smaller portion of their income for food than folks anywhere else in the world. But that is changing. Are food prices going up? Well, Listen to this from Gary Crawford.
Some of us may jokingly complain that food prices at the supermarket are high, but few of us will complain about the direction in which those prices are going.
So far this year, grocery store prices have actually declined 0.7%.
Agriculture Department food price analyst Anne-Marie Coons, the latest evidence of declining grocery prices is in the latest Consumer Price Index, showing a 0.4% decline in prices during June. And in fact, we've seen monthly price declines 3 months out of the first 6 of 2016, 1 month of no change, 2 months of very slight food price hikes. And Coons says if you look at supermarket food prices this June compared to June of 2015,
we're paying 1.3% less for food at home or groceries than we did in June of 2015. And this is the largest year-over-year decline since January of 2010.
Just about the only foods we're paying more for, fresh fruits and vegetables. But eating out's costing more, about 2.5% more than last summer. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
Sad story here. Former Wyoming lawmaker has died in a four-wheeler accident in Campbell County, Wyoming. Sheriff Scott Matheny says 60-year-old Troy Matter was killed while herding cattle with a four-wheeler on a ranch north of Gillette. The sheriff said that Matter was thrown from the vehicle after going down into a ravine. When you're working out your budget to replace bulls, keep this in mind. $107,000. That's what a Charolais bull from A. Sparrow Farms of Vanscoy, Saskatchewan brought last year. And the Charolais Banner has released the 2016 bull sale results from over 89 sales, reporting the average was up $14 a head over the year before. And back in June, a new record was set for a Speckled Park bull. River Hill 50T Crusader 025C got a valuation of $60,000 for a 50% interest and 100% possession to the Crusader Syndicate of Australia and several others. Speckled Park, as you know, is the first breed of cattle totally developed in Canada. And back in 2013, Canada was successful in bidding for the 2018 World Equestrian Games, but now it looks like the country might not be able to hold the event. Carla Qualruff, Federal Minister of Sport, has declined to support the event. In a statement, the minister said the government cannot support the presentation through Sport Canada. The Games have a budget of $100 million. The Oxner Ranch, a five-generation family-run operation known for their registered Hereford and Angus bulls, was in the path of a wildfire that burned through eastern Wyoming in mid-July. Lightning started the Prairie Center fire near Torrington. Firefighters put the fire out that evening, but the next day at about 11 a.m. the fire came back to life, encouraged by low relative humidity and fanned by 30-mile-an-hour sustained winds and 60-mile-an-hour gusts. When the flames died down, it had burned about 25,000 acres and 9 structures. And Dixie Oshner Roth, who with her husband Steve is a partner in the family ranch, said they estimate about 12 to 15,000 acres were on their ranch, burning their winter calving facilities and pastures. And a partner in the ranch, Rodney, suffered a broken pelvis, broken ankle, and several broken ribs and facial injuries when the fire truck he was in collided head-on with another fire truck in the dense smoke. Boy, I sure enjoy the writing in Alberta Beef Magazine and Beef Illustrated. Bonnie and Garth and Lee put some articles together that really keep us not only informed and educated, but they make you feel good to be in the cattle business. To subscribe, just call 403-250-1090. And there's always lots happening at the Innisfail Auction Market, with regular cattle sales every Wednesday, horse sales twice a month, and as you look forward to bringing in those yearlings and finding a way to market them, you might want to check with the folks there. Find out more at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. And that takes us down to the final item, and it was a dark, overcast fall day. Evening came early, and these cowboys that I've known for a long time were bringing in the last of the old cows and calves down from the summer range, and it was slow going, lots of heavy brush and timber on both sides of the steep trail, and it was getting dark, and the cows were tired, but they only had a mile to go to the gate. And the feller on the drag rode up, and he was doing his best to get an old cow moving when she just seemed to stand still. So finally he took down his rope and he started massaging her firmly on the back with the end of his rope, and then he called his partner over for some help. Bob, come on over here and give me a hand with this cow. I can't get her to move. So Bob rode over, got off his horse, and looked up and said, No wonder, Leroy. That's not a cow. That's a stump. True story. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the horse training file, I'll examine some examples of less than stellar horsemanship, in some cases from riders who really should know better. Another pretty meaningful song about life on the land, and then the final installment of Buddy Gale's story, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. I've watched a lot of riders at some pretty high-profile events, and sometimes, boy, the horsemanship is sadly lacking. Tell you more on the horse training file coming right up. But first, here's my old pal Dick Dameron, who picks and sings down in Mexico most of the time these days, and he's had some challenges recently, but we all hope you're doing fine now, Dick.
He sits all alone in his old rocking chair, beat up guitar in his hand. He don't look it now, but I know somehow he once was a hell of a man. His hair's all silver, his sight's fading fast. He can still look back 80 odd years. In his soul there's a place time can't erase, and it won't wash away with a tear. He once was a soldier, she was his queen, way back before I came along. If you don't believe me, just sit down beside him, listen a while to his songs. He'll tell you his stories, sing you his songs. He remembers the time and the place. His battered old hat pulled low on his head, see the tears on his face. He's the last of the rodeo riders, not the worst or the best, just a man, just a kid with his dreams of the big time, turned to dust in the soul of a man. There's a rodeo poster all faded and torn in the case with that beat up guitar, and the ghosts of the memories he's tried to forget, riding too long, too hard, from winter to summer, from spring to fall. He'll tell you it always smile, nod his old head, close those gray eyes, lay back and dream for a while. He's the last of the rodeo rider, not the worst or the best, just a man, just a kid with his dreams of the big time, turned to dust in the soul of a man. He's the last of the rodeo riders, not the worst or the best, just a man, just a kid with his dreams of the big time, turned to dust in the soul of a man.
Dick Dameron, kind of a country music legend in his own right. Well, for those of you who have been asking, and boy, I'll tell you, the response has been phenomenal. We have a big pile of people already booked for our next Spirit of the West cruise, and it's almost a year away. That's right, next June. We'll be taking the whole gang way up to Alaska aboard the beautiful Holland America ship, the Noordam, sailing out of Vancouver Harbor, and some of the places we'll see: Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, Glacier Bay, and then 2 spectacular sightseeing days in Denali National Park. And then we board the magnificent McKinley Railroad with their sightseeing dome cars and have a good look at North America's highest peak, Mount McKinley, and then on up to Anchorage. And of course, we'll have the Cruisin' Cowboy Band, Western music concerts, sing-alongs, and it's a trip that's been on a lot of people's bucket list for a long time. And If you'd like to travel by rail, we do have an optional Rocky Mountaineer rail package, so you can come from Calgary or Edmonton to Vancouver by Rocky Mountain Rail. Just ask Jim and Karen for the details on that. Our whole schedule with prices and everything else is available on the cruise page at our website, hugh-mclennan.com, and you can get all the information at our toll-free number, 1-800-530-0131. Now, the horse training file. And I think it was Yogi Berra who said it best, you can observe a lot just by watching. And I've always liked to watch horses and riders and observe. For example, watching the victory lap at a rodeo like the Calgary Stampede. I've seen calf ropers, bronc riders, and bulldoggers look just awful in the saddle, galloping behind the Stampede Queen, their hands way up in the air, yanking on the horse's mouth, using the reins for balance, and still way out of balance and out of time with the horse. I've observed many people, many good friends who absolutely love their horses, but they're killing them with kindness. After a ride of maybe an hour, they'll spend a long time brushing, grooming, cleaning every last bit of dirt from the horse, and then put a blanket on him and put him in a box stall or a little paddock. Now, what that horse wants to do more than anything after a ride is when the saddle's taken off, all he wants to do is walk a few steps away and then have a big roll in the dirt. And I've seen them try and roll with the blanket on, and they can't even scratch their backs that way. And one of these well-meaning riders was watching as I went to catch and saddle one of my horses. He was lying down in the pasture, and I just walked up with the halter in my hand, knelt down and rubbed his neck and slipped the halter on before he even got up. And they said, "Oh, I'd give anything if Fluffy would only trust me the way your horse trusts you, but he heads away every time I approach him." Well, you see, it's important not to assume that horses think like we do. A horse is motivated by relief more than anything. Horses, unlike people, are not greedy. They don't really care what the tack looks like as long as it's comfortable. They don't care what they look like after a roll in the mud. They don't plan ahead. If they're comfortable in the moment, that's all they need. And that's the horse training file. One thing that gives our horses comfort and something they really like is that daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration. And you can find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. And we'll get back to Buddy Gale's Bronx story after a song that Gary Felgard recorded a while back. And boy, it's really a good fit with some of today's subject matter. It's called Share the Range.
If I was a cowboy, would you ride up here beside me? Would you settle down beneath the western sun? Hey, would you be the one? I never was much good with cattle, but I got this horse and saddle. So let's saddle up and ride him to the hills. Hey, what a thrill. I can't believe we're still out playing cowboy in this world of swift and sudden change. It's good to know that love can be forever, and we can still play cowboy if we can share the range. Share the range. Still play cowboy if we can share the range. So we got ourselves 10 acres. I'll make a living shuffling papers, and I cut that grass with a John Deere rider mower. Hey, what a chore. We should open up this pasture to some hard-working rancher. Well, I've heard it said that he's seen better days and he could use the graze. I can't believe we're still out playing cowboy in this world of swift and sudden change. It's good to know that love can be forever, and we can still play if we can share the range, share the range. Still play cowboy if we can share the range. Hats off to the cowboy who does the most for the common good. Is it the one who shuffles papers or the one who raises food? I can't believe we're still out playing cowboy in this world of swift and sudden change. It's good to know that love can be forever, and we can still play cowboy. Hats off to the cowboy. We can still play cowboy if we can share the range, share the range. Still play cowboy if we can share the range.
Now back to Buddy Gale and the final installment of Bronc Story. The young cowboy stepped up on the bronc that had never been ridden, and here's how it went.
Hey, you guys, open the gate and let's get out of here, he yelled. So they opened the gate. The horses, who were now in a wild panic along with Nick on his blue-gray, bucking and squealing, poured out through the gate. The horse ran and bucked and grunted out through the herd, but Nick rode him to a standstill. He ran in circles this way and that and finally got back to the corral. "Throw me the lead rope on my horse and I'll take him home with me," he said. What opened the kid's eyes was, along with not caring which horse they roped for him, he was leading his other horse home off the back of this green bronc. Cowboy thinking runs along the line of, you do what you have to do when you have to do it. Nick rode off into the evening dusk. He could have been riding some kid pony for all it mattered to him.
Well, I'm looking forward to visiting with Buddy Gale again at the 40th Annual Ivan Danes Country Music Picnic coming up later this week. Next, it's a classic Song of the West and the story behind the song, then the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. This is our classic Song of the West segment where we look at one of those great old cowboy songs and try and find out a little information about it. Sometime between 1933 and 1941, as the legendary Wilf Carter was evolving from a working cowboy to a trail guide for Brewsters in the Rockies near Banff, he was writing songs and singing them for the dudes, and he wrote this one before 1935, and he recorded it on an album called Yodeling Hillbilly. Now, like so many of Wilf's early songs, it just reflected a simple love of cowboy life, and nobody does a Wilf Carter song better than Randy Holler. It's good to be back in the saddle again.
It seems ages since I rode the ranges. It seems ages since I saddled pal. Time has changed many scenes on the prairie, where the range herd and branding corral. Many old cattle trails I deserted, where we rode through the cool shady glades. No more campfires gleam on the roundup. In my roundup of dreams they all fade. fall I list of stories of the many, many changes since I left. At times it makes me sad, but still I'm happy to be back at my old home in the West. And it's great to be back in the saddle, just to ride along and dream of old days. And I'll never go back to the city, I can't quite get used to their ways. I can't quite get used to their ways.
You know, a trend all over the West seems to be the inevitable spread of subdivisions into what was traditional ranch land. And it's happened repeatedly. A ranch gets subdivided into quarter sections, 80-acre parcels, 20-acre parcels and smaller, and folks from the city move out to the country. And that's fine, as long as they appreciate the fact that they are in areas where ranchers have lived and worked and raised cattle for generations. And I like the way Morgan Wilson puts it in this piece of cowboy poetry. I just thought I'd stop in and see how you folks are making out, if there's anything you might need or want to know about. Well, yes, he said. There's a couple things we're curious to know, like when's the grid road getting paved and what happens when it snows? And do those cows and calves moo all the time or just mainly through the night? We can smell whatever they leave behind when the wind gets blowing, right? The school bus comes awful early, almost 25 to 8, and the kids have to get on and off just to open and close the gate. And the farmer who's across the fence was not concerned with us. After supper, he was baling hay. He made lots of noise and dust. I said not to worry. Haying season's almost done, and once the combines are finished, well, the dust will settle some. The cows will bawl a little more when weaning rolls around, and the smell will dissipate a bit once the snow covers up the ground. The school bus time, well, it'll stay the same. It's a fairly easy drive. When I was young, I got on at 7 and got home at 10 past 5. We don't expect the road to be paved. We're lucky just to have gravel. When it snows, you might have to wait until it melts and you can travel. Well, it looks like you're all settled and your place looks neat and fine. We're glad to have new neighbors and you're welcome any time. But I see your dogs are running and exploring in my hay. Would you mind keeping them at home before they mix trouble with their play? I wouldn't want them getting hurt. They're digging in my crops. Or if they chase my cows and horses, that would just have to stop. And I noticed you have a fire pit you use almost every night. And the other day when it was windy, boy, it gave us quite a fright. We make our meager living growing grain and making hay. A puff of wind could wipe us out if your campfire got away. I bid him good afternoon, and I said I meant no harm. I guess he just didn't understand how to live beside a farm. He's still welcome to come for coffee, and his kids can come and play and find out what country is all about and help us out on a busy day. I'll do my best to welcome them and try not to judge and frown. But if he finds the country so unpleasant, why didn't he stay in town? Well, thank you so much for making the ride, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And thanks again to Mark and Kathy McMillan, the Spirit of the West support crew. You can see them at meadowsprings.com. And hey, Mark, that tractor's running just fine now. Be sure to check out the latest issue of Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine at your favorite newsstand or subscribe online at cowboycountrymagazine.com. And I hope you can look us up and say howdy at the 40th Annual Hive and Danes Country Music Picnic. And I'll be on horseback for the Open Ranch Colt Starting Challenge and Demo. That starts Wednesday, goes till Friday, and then I'll be on stage there Friday night. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.